Hello there, welcome along to Transfer Talk. We've got a month left of the window, and what a window it's already been. It's not over yet either. Many clubs are still keen to do business, and we look set for more big money moves. We'll come back to that because we've got some significant breaking news for you, and Newcastle United have rejected an official bid from Liverpool for Alexander Isak. The offer is believed to be over £100 million, but hasn't reached Newcastle's valuation of the player. Newcastle do not want to sell, and they value Isak, as we heard from Keith Downey there, at around about £150 million. We will try and get Keith Downey back for you in the next few minutes and see what he's got to say about it. Right, let's get out to Keith Downey then, who's still at St James's Park. Keith, that happened very quickly. What can you tell us?
Yeah, I'm just packing up and ready to go there when that news came through to me that Liverpool have, and I said to you just a couple of moments ago, they need to formalise that informal interest with a formal offer, and the news just in the last couple of moments that Liverpool have done exactly that, and they have made a formal approach to Newcastle United for Alexander Isak with a bid, as we understand it, in excess of £100 million. We don't know the exact figure at this stage, but Newcastle have knocked that offer back. They've rejected that offer. One, the figure doesn't meet their valuation of the player. Two, they don't want to sell the player anyway. And three, they have yet to bring in a replacement. They're looking to try and bring in a top level replacement for Alexander Isak if he does agitate enough to leave, and Liverpool managed to agree a fee with Newcastle, but they've not managed to do that. They've not managed to reach the level that Newcastle United are looking for, and as a result Newcastle have rejected Liverpool's offer in excess of £100 million for striker Alexander Isak, who of course is training and recovering on his own out in Spain at the Real Sociedad training camp. Newcastle are out in South Korea on their pre-season tour, so he's on his own there, away from the club. I was surprised that Liverpool hadn't made a formal offer with the two parties separated like that. I was surprised if it had gone on into next week. I'd said previously, but Liverpool have now made that formal offer for Newcastle. So in excess of £100 million. We don't know the exact figure, endeavouring to find out. Newcastle have turned that down, but I don't think this is the last we're going to hear of this story.
Do Newcastle want to get the replacement in position first, or if a big enough offer comes in, would they just accept that before having the replacement in?
I think they would need to have assurances that they're to get a player in. I honestly don't think Newcastle want to leave themselves in a position where they have essentially no strikers. All they would be left with is young Will Asula, 21-year-old forward who was bought last summer from Sheffield United. Remember, they've lost Callum Wilson. They need a replacement from Callum Wilson. They're trying to bring in Johan Wissa from Brentford as the Callum Wilson replacement. They've not managed to reach an agreement with Brentford there. That is becoming a bit of a long drawn out saga in itself. So if they were to lose Isak without bringing in a replacement, they've essentially got no first choice forwards to start the season or to start from. They need to ensure, I think, at the very least, that they have assurances or they've got an agreement in place with, for example, RB Leipzig for Benjamin Sesko, but that isn't close at the moment because Manchester United are also interested and have been holding talks with Sesko's representatives, and I think there's a little bit of an internal worry within Newcastle that Sesko favours Manchester United ahead of Newcastle United, which then leaves Newcastle back at the drawing board again. So look, I think Newcastle desperately would want a replacement for them to allow Isak to leave, but allied to that is the fact that Liverpool's bid isn't enough. It's not what they're looking for. So look, Newcastle doing a lot of work behind the scenes to try and bring in a striker. They don't want to start the season with an unhappy striker. They don't want to start the season with someone who's perhaps causing problems behind the scenes. next week will be so interesting because Newcastle return on Monday, Isak will return on Monday, the two will get down and talk. I don't think we'll get any resolution to this over the weekend. It'll be interesting to see if Liverpool come in with a second offer, but that first offer turned down. Of course, they made the informal approach 2 weeks ago. I don't think personal terms will be a problem, but that first formal approach, a bid in excess of £100 million, turned down by Newcastle United this afternoon. 1, they want to keep Isak. 2, the valuation isn't met. And 3, as you rightly say, Matt, a replacement is not in place yet, and I think that's key for this deal.
Okay, so you expect Isak and Newcastle back on Monday then, and now that we've got this first bid, do you expect things to really accelerate next week? I mean, could it even be done next week?
It could be done next week. Absolutely, it could. I said to you in the last update I did, maybe just half an hour ago, that I don't see this dragging on until the end of the transfer window. Like, Newcastle would want some kind of resolution. I think Liverpool would too. It's the amount of money that we're talking about. It's eye-watering sums of money. I don't think this is one that can be left to the dying embers of the transfer window. So I do expect a resolution one way or the other in the next week or two. But it's a huge transfer. It would be a Premier League record, this, if Newcastle are to accept. I mean, obviously, I'm saying in excess of £100 million. It could be 120, it could be 130. We're trying to actually get the exact figure on that at the moment, but we've been unable to find out, other than it's more than £100 million. I think if this is to happen, it will happen within the next week to 10 days. But also, Newcastle need to get a replacement in, and that may take time as well. I think the longer this goes on without an agreement, without Newcastle having a replacement in position, the longer this goes on, the less likely this is going to happen. And that is why I think, Matt, that these next sort of 7 to 10 days are really, really crucial here. And I think that's why Liverpool have finally formalised their approach. As I said earlier, I was surprised they hadn't done it already, given the fact Isak is away from the Newcastle squad. He's in Europe. They're, of course, in Asia at the moment. I was surprised they hadn't come in with a formal offer. Well, they have now, but they're going to have to up it significantly, and Newcastle are going to have to find a top-level replacement. I would be amazed if Newcastle sell Alexander Isak without someone lined up, because that would leave them without a striker. And that's an incredible situation for them to be in when they've got a double-pronged attack this season on the Premier League and also the Champions League as well. This is not how Newcastle wanted their summer transfer window to pan out. They were expecting to strengthen this window. Yes, they've brought in Anthony Elanga, but they're actually down on numbers, having lost both Sean Longstaff and Callum Wilson. This was the window they were supposed to strengthen. After 3 windows without any activity at all, it's gone the complete other way, and it's been a really bruising few weeks for everyone involved at the football club.
And just finally, on Isak himself, and you know how he's behaved. I mean, he hasn't downed tools or anything like that, but he is training at the facilities of his old club, and he's not gone on tour with Newcastle to Asia. Can you see a way back for him if, say, Liverpool don't come up with the right kind of offer? Can you see him in a Newcastle shirt in September?
Yes, I can, and that would be because he has to. He's contracted to Newcastle United. He gets paid a lot of money to be a Newcastle player. He's one of the top earners at the football club, so he would have to knuckle down and get on with it. Like, I would suggest that if he wasn't to, it would probably be a slight on his character and his professionalism. So look, Eddie Howe would have to do the mother of all man management jobs on him to try and get his head into the right place, because without doubt his head has been turned by the first informal approach by Liverpool, and then now, as of the last hour, the formal approach by Liverpool. So he would just have to get his head back onto it. I can see a situation where he remains at Newcastle. I can also see a situation where he's wearing the red shirt of Liverpool, and I think it's 50-50 at the moment. We're in a really, really delicate situation, but as I said earlier, I expect to have some kind of resolution to this within the next 7 to 10 days, because this transfer saga can't go on forever.
It can't. I'll tell you what, Keith, very glad you hadn't packed away. Thanks for doing the overtime. Right, let's recap that huge news then. Newcastle have rejected a bid from Liverpool for at least £100 million for Alexander Isak. We'll have more throughout the hour. For talk, let's bring you more on the huge breaking news in the past few minutes. Liverpool have had an official bid of at least £100 million rejected by Newcastle for Alexander Isak. Newcastle have made it clear this window that they don't want to sell their top scorer from last season and would only consider doing business for a British transfer record fee of at least £150 million. Isak informed Newcastle he wants to explore his options in this window and is currently training individually at his former club, Real Sociedad's training facilities, having become unsettled amid the speculation surrounding his future. Right, Dan, what happens next from here?
I mean, it's very interesting, this saga. We heard from Keith Downey just before the break, and it feels like in the next week, 10 days, it'll be pivotal for this potential deal to happen or not. Because for Newcastle, as you said, they've made it adamant they do not want to sell their star player. I mean, the message it would send to their supporters, to the position the club are in, considering they are in the Champions League this season, they want to compete on all fronts. To lose your star striker wouldn't send a great message at all. But also, you have to consider they also don't have many other options at their 9 position. They've lost out on other targets, as we've already mentioned, like João Pedro, Brian Mbeumo, Ugo Ekitike as well. So that is their position. Of course it is. But Liverpool, of course, want to go on another level from their Premier League winning side last year. They easily won that title, but now they have other targets, the Champions League, for example. And really what we'll see now, having sold Luis Diaz, it is like for like in the sense of Diaz played as a striker for quite a bit of last season, not just out on the wing. So Slot is looking for that replacement. Darwin Núñez, future might be uncertain this window as well. So their target, it feels like, their number one target is Isak. Will they go in for that 150 million evaluation? Or Tim, as you said, will they meet halfway through the middle? I can't see Newcastle doing that because the message it would send to compromise.
What about Núñez moving the other way? What about some kind of swap plus money deal?
Now you've opened a can of worms.
Throw that into the cauldron of speculation to see what will emerge.
Absolutely. I think one thing's for certain though is Isak is clearly unsettled, of course, training in San Sebastian at his previous club, Real Sociedad. And as Keith mentioned, it becomes very precarious for the club. You're right, because do you settle with an unsettled player going into the new season? One thing I do want to say is Newcastle play Liverpool on August 25th on Sky Sports. Very excited for that already, because that could be very awkward, or it could be a way for Isak to get into the hearts of those Newcastle fans once again.
Excited about that anyway. I'm super excited.